Hello and welcome. My name is Kelsey Livingston, and this is another episode of Artists in Residence by the Baton Rouge Gallery. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. The Artists in Residence is a twice-a-week series where we check in with artists of all kinds. Since we can't bring you into our space right now at City Park, we are tuning in with local artists to virtually bring you into their space. We want to thank our partners at Breck for our home in City Park. We have had a partnership with them since the mid-'80s, so going on 3 decades now, and that relationship is just so essential. We really appreciate them. This show is made possible by our donors and our members. We want to say thank you to everyone who donates to the gallery and who is a member there. If you want to get information about membership, we do have new monthly memberships that start as low as $5. Check the ticker at the bottom of the screen here. That'll tell you where to go to get information on that. Today, we are going to be interviewing 3 different community artists. The first is Phyllis Lear, who is an artist member of the Baton Rouge Gallery. Then we'll be talking to Caitlin Moore as a representative of the Flat Curve Gallery. And then finally, we'll be closing out the broadcast with a interview and performance by Raudaol Palacios. He is the cellist in Ship of Fools. He has performed at the gallery many times for our first Wednesday, and he also is an artist teacher. So without further ado, I would like to bring on our very first guest, Phyllis Lear. Phyllis, hi, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for asking. How is everything going with you?
Pretty good. Can't complain, you know.
Good.
Miss people.
Oh man, do I miss people? Tell me about it. So for the audience, Phyllis Lear has been an artist member at the gallery since 2005. She has 3 master's degrees in visual arts and art history, which is very impressive. She explores issues of a wide variety of things, gender roles in art history, the environment, personal memory, all sorts of things via a fiber art and quilting craft. Let me share my screen so that I can show our audience a little bit about what you do. Bear with me a second. Here we go.
Sure.
Coming up. There we go. Here we are.
There we are.
Okay. So, Phyllis, tell the audience a little bit about the what and the why behind the artwork that you make. And I'll be scrolling through these. If you want me to stop at any one, please just say so.
Okay. Well, the work that I do is based on a little thing called a Suffolk puff or a yo-yo. And it's made out of fabric, a circle of fabric, and you gather it around the edges and then you pull it together and it forms this little thing called a yo-yo. That's a picture of me cutting them out, okay?
This is what it looks like before.
Right. Before I sew them, you just make a bunch of circles in different sizes. And then you sew around the edge and then you pull it together and it gathers it and it makes a yo-yo. And so I use that as a module or like a little, this is one I'm working on right now. You put them together and I put them together in various configurations, but originally they were used to put together like little scraps that you had left over from sewing other things to make like quilts and little blankets and things like that. And so I adopted them or adapted them to make fine art pieces because I am a fine artist. So that's basically the gist of it right there. And I like it because it's very portable. I can make yo-yos wherever I am. And then when I get home, I can start putting them together. You can take, you can shift them around. They're very manipulative, which I like.
It's a lot like collage work, it looks like.
A lot like what?
Collaging? Like
yes,
what you would do with paper?
Collage, yeah. And I for years I did collage work, and I do like to add found objects in some of them. So, that's how I do it. And I'm usually have a thought in mind about some kind of idea that I want to create. For example, this one that you just showed with the book. Let's see, can you go back or no?
Yeah.
That one. This one, is really a kind of my feminist piece, really. And this is my undergraduate art history book from when I was an undergrad. And it is the book that everyone used. It wasn't just my university. It was the book across the country that everyone used to teach art. And there's not one woman artist in it. I mean, Georgia O'Keeffe's not in it. Miriam Shapiro's not in it. Faith Ringgold's not in it. Ellen Frankenthaler's not in it. None of those women are in it at all. Okay. And
Wow.
so recently, you know, I guess once you hit a certain age, you really don't care what anybody thinks anymore. And so I decided, you know what, this pissed me off. And so the title of the piece is Not One Woman, Just Tits and Ass. And it's all about what's in the book, which is a lot of male gaze type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is, you zoom in here. This is actually a color plate from the inside of the book, right? That's
right,
from an actual.
this is a Angs's Odalisque, it's called, and basically it's a woman from a harem, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And European men at the time just were fascinated by the harem. You know, they thought of them as brothels, which a harem is not that at all. This is about, harems are about wives and children and women who are loved, right? They're not necessarily about, it's not a brothel, okay?
No.
For one thing. This is a man's wife and children you're talking about, not anyway, but European men saw it that way. And so
yeah, well, also the idea of the brothel at the time is an exotic kind of fascinating thing, I'm sure.
Right, exactly.
A whole other
but it's
problematic
it's
thing.
all about the male gaze. Okay, it's all about this being, you know, the pinup of the 1800s or whatever. So, and of course, there's a lot of nude women in the book, but there's not one woman artist. And it's kind of the whole idea that the Guerrilla Girls had with that, you know, iconic billboard they put up. Do you have to be naked to get in the Met? Kind of thing.
I want to get through. Speaking of.
Yeah, this is the one that's in the Baton Rouge Gallery's offices. This is the
my office, and I hate to ask you, but you might have to censor the title of this one a little bit.
Okay, this is a piece that I did shortly after the Women's March on Washington,
which was in January of 2017, right?
Right. Yeah. And so I just loved those little pink hats they crocheted, and of course the collage piece in the frame. It starts way in the back with the suffragists, and then it moves forward through time, through like the civil rights movement, and then finally right up front you can see a close-up of the Guerrilla Girls. So it's really a kind of a testament that the fight's been going on for a very long time for equal rights for women. And as a matter of fact, 2020 is the 100-year anniversary for the women's rights to vote in America.
Fantastic trivia that I feel like as a woman I should have known just off the top of my head.
And, you know, but we weren't the first. The Australians were the first people to grant women the right to vote. So
yeah, wow.
Interesting.
So in addition to that subject matter, I want to go back a little bit because you do make work about memory specific to you. So I want to talk about this piece here just briefly.
Okay.
You can almost tell just by looking at it with no context at all that it was made from a complete garment.
Right.
What I don't know is what was it, and I'd love to know the significance behind it.
Okay, so this is called Connie's gown. It was a nightgown that a friend of mine gave me. And I wore it for years and years and years. And finally I wore it out. It started having holes in it and everything. And I just couldn't throw it away. This friend of mine is deceased. She's a victim of suicide. So I'm never going to I'm never going to get a gift from her again. Okay. I mean, this is the gift. And so I chose to make a yo-yo work out of it. And I wanted to make sure that the gown elements showed up. So I actually just stretched the gown front with the pocket, with the
See right
little,
here.
yeah, um, to around a 10 by 10 canvas. And then I applied the yo-yos to it. And of course, I cut the gown up and made yo-yos out of the gown as well. You can see the ones that are made out of the gown fabric. And then I went
Mm-hmm.
and matched up fabric that was the same color scheme, you know, the same color palette. And I just made this piece about her. And it's her gown that she gave me. And, you know,
Yeah. So why did you get into using fibers and this quilting technique to create your imagery rather than going a more traditional drawing, painting, photo, printmaking? What drew you to fiber?
well, a lot of, I've always sewn. You know, I grew up, and if we wanted a prom dress, we had to sew the prom dress, right? If we wanted a
Really?
homecoming dress, we had to sew that. And so my sisters and I are all seamstresses. My grandmother was a seamstress. Both, I have a godmother that's a fantastic seamstress. And actually, I'm not the seamstress of the family. You know, my sister, Bernadette, is really the fiber expert in the family. So I often have to call her and ask her, you know, what would you do? How should I attach this? And so
Hmm.
she kind of guides me through that. And so I guess part of it is that it's my artistic heritage. Um, I think too that it's a very it was always considered woman's work, you know, quilting and that kind of thing. So that appeals to my feminist side. Um,
Sure.
and also, what really started me thinking about it is a friend of mine said, you know, my mother makes yo-yos all the time. And I said, what do you mean, like for kids to play with? And she said, no, you know, those little fabric things. I said, oh, yeah. And she said she just has buckets of them and she doesn't know what to do with them. And this was like years and years ago, okay? And
I
I
just
thought,
picture like boxes and boxes of these yo-yos just stacked next to the bed.
yes. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's pretty cool. I mean, what could I do with that? And I really didn't do anything with them for a long time. This probably happened like in 2000 and I don't know, 7 maybe or 8. Okay. I
Mhm.
was working in a CASA office as an AmeriCorps volunteer, right? And this one of the girls there said that, and I started thinking about it, and it was always in the back of my mind. And then I thought, you know, I need to figure out how I'm going to do that, and what would I want to say, right?
Wow.
What would I want to say with that? And so finally, it reached a point in my collage work where I was just not. It was okay. I liked my collage work. It's good work, but it was like I think I was ready to move on to something else, and this
Sure.
was already in the back of my mind. And I thought, well, let me make a piece. And so the first piece I ever made was that red oil and blood piece. That was my very first piece I ever made. But I started kind of making sketches and looking around and thinking about, well, what would I want to talk about? And this is a feminist kind of female endeavor. So
Hmm.
I could talk about those things that I really haven't talked about before as far as political goes. Because most of my collage work was very, very personal. You know,
Sure.
it was about personal experiences. Although, you know, when you start thinking about it, no personal experience is really that personal. They're usually universal because we're all human beings, you know, and we all
Mhm.
experience a lot of the same things. So I just that's what happened. I decided to use yo-yos in a way. And then once I made that first one, of course, ideas just keep popping in my head, and I have to keep making sketches so that I don't forget what I'm going to do with them. Like right now in the dryer, I have fabric drying that I've washed for my next piece after this huge big I'm calling it kudzu right now. You know, that vine, that invasive species that has been in the South for a while that they introduced to stop erosion down
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
it loves it down here, and so it's taken over everything. So that's the name of this green piece is called kudzu.
This
Uh,
one that's coming up here.
Yeah.
We have an audience question if you wouldn't mind fielding that. Let me pull it up here.
Okay.
It's the question from Beth Welsh,
Okay.
also an artist.
Okay.
Can you describe your thought process when you're making your work from idea to the execution? How do you go about it? Thank you for that question, Beth.
Okay. Well, the best way for me to answer it is I look around me, and I listen and I have conversations and I journal. So that's most of the time how my ideas begin. And then from there, I kind of sometimes make a little rough sketch. Sometimes I do a more thought out sketch. But then I think, okay, how big does this really need to be for me to for it to say what I want it to say? Sometimes it, just like this one you're showing right now, it's just 10 inches by 10 inches.
Yeah.
That's as big as it needed to be, right?
And this one actually has some collage bits of, looks like
Right.
chocolate wrappers in
Yeah.
there.
This was Ferrero chocolates. This is
Um,
called Chocolates with Friends. And I went to the beach because I knew I love those little round wrappers, right? So I went to the beach and I told all of my girlfriends that I go to the beach with every year. I said, "Hey, do y'all want to help me make art?" And they're like, "Yeah, right." And I said, "Y'all need to eat these boxes of chocolates, but put the wrappers here." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we could do that." So that's what this is about. It's Chocolates with Friends. And so that's kind of how the ideas happen. Is I see something and I think, oh, I can make art out of that. This could be a good piece. This could be something I could talk about. And then
mhm.
I decide on size. That's important for me. How big does it have to be? And then
So,
I sketch it out with color and everything, and do all the design elements. Color, texture, shape, all of those things come into play by then. And then finally, I start making yo-yos. I start cutting them out, making them. I procure the fabric, and I start cutting out the yo-yos and sewing them. Um, and it just
so
takes a while. So once I sew them all, then I can start manipulating. I can put them down, and I can rearrange them and arrange them. And then
mhm.
finally, I sew them. Yeah.
So one last set of questions I want to ask you is because a lot of these work are specifically politically or socially charged, like this piece here. Uh, when you're deciding on the content of the work, and do you decide on the basic shape of and size of the piece and how it's gonna, in the case of this one, drape down and incorporate, even the physical floor space? A lot of your work breaks the rectangle. How do you make decisions on composition before you have everything built?
And again, it's a process, and of course it changes, right, as I go through the process. For example, this piece was my very first piece ever, so I learned a lot from it, right?
Hmm.
um, for example, how do I get these two black rectangles to remain where they are, be able to hang the piece, and then have that stuff drape? It's kind of a technical issue, right?
I really wish that I had a picture of the back of this piece to kind of give folks some sort of inside
Right.
baseball on how they're built.
Right. And so usually I end up at the hardware store for this kind of thing, where I have to
Hmm.
find some kind of brackets and things like that. And so for this piece, it really kind of grew. It looks a lot like the sketch I made. And the sketches look very abstract. I'm just blocking out color and form. And then I have to figure out technically how to get it to drape like that. And of course, I pin it up, and sometimes I have to take it all apart and then put it back together again. So it's a true process. It's not like I map it all out and then I decide, okay, I'm going to stick to this map. Because what happens is like right now, the kudzu one I'm working on, I was looking for a backing to hang it the way I wanted it to look. And I kept looking for a material. And I was at my sister's house and I said, what do you think I should use for the backing of this thing to get it to hang, like I want it to? And she went in her sew shed. She has a sewing shed in the back of her house, which is
Imagine having a whole shed dedicated to
well,
sewing. I love
and it's
that.
not even really a shed. It's like Cadillac. But anyway, so she goes back there. She's been making masks for this pandemic, right? And she's using air conditioning filters that she
Mhm.
has been recommended for the filter on the inside of the mask. So she's been pulling air conditioning filters apart, and in an air conditioning filter, there's this wire.
Yeah.
So she
So it
said,
doesn't pull the filter through into your air conditioning unit.
right. So she said,
I
look,
learned that the
I have all this wire. Use this wire. So that's what
hard way.
ended up being the back to this kudzu piece, right? So that I'm
Mhm.
able to hang it and it's still open. It's not, and it's going to hold its shape well enough. So that's the process. It's very almost intuitive and organic. Even though I have a sketch, it's a very
You
loose.
sort of have to react. Yeah,
Right,
you gotta take things as they come at you and get kind of you
exactly.
have to turn your engineer cap a little bit when it comes to, the actual finishing of the piece. That's so
And you have to
interesting.
be very open. Like if something
Mhm.
presents itself, say, oh yeah, that might work, but then it might not. So you have to rip the whole thing off and go back. I mean, that happens. That's just how art
Sure.
works for me anyway. But yeah, and so basically that's my steps. The idea is from my life, what I live, what I'm thinking, what I journal, what people say, conversations I have. And it's just a kernel of an idea. And then I can kind of sketch out, or I'll write out, man, what if this would work? I wonder if that would work. And then from there, deciding composition and size. And then after that, just figuring out a process to make it happen. And ultimately, yeah, it doesn't look exactly like the sketch, but I don't think it
Then
would.
yeah.
Yeah, it never
So
did.
that's what this is
Right.
for, is to give you like some bones. Well, Phyllis, thank you so much for sharing this with us. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Um, if anyone wants to see more work from Phyllis Lear, you can visit our website, batonrougegallery.org. There is a tab on the side for artists and artist members. You can see her work and that of the other artists in the gallery. Phyllis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okie dokie. Now we are going to bring on a young artist her name is Caitlin Moore. Her work was featured in the Flat Curve Gallery, which I will show you as soon as we bring her on. She is going to talk about what inspired the work and how her life has been since quarantine. So let's go ahead and bring her on. Caitlin, hi.
Hey, hi. Um,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. All right, so let me share with the audience. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen to show the work that you sent in for our Flat Curve Gallery, because it really resonated with me. Here we go. I think it speaks to how a lot of people are feeling these days, especially in those early days when things were first starting to shut down. Teachers and parents were panicking, trying to figure out how they're going to juggle this online learning situation, and just all of the noise coming from the various media sources. I feel like you captured something pretty well here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were feeling when you made this piece, and when did you make this piece?
I made this maybe like right when all this was probably starting. School had just been canceled, probably like a week before, and it was actually a project for school because my art teacher told us either we could do a self portrait or we could do a piece on how we feel about the coronavirus, and I did both in one. And it was just
Hmm.
like in the beginning, whenever everybody was really scared and didn't know what was going to happen and all. And so I just like wanted to capture that because, a lot of my friends were very like mad and upset because for like at least people my like kids my age, it was like I'm a senior, so like it was like, oh, we don't get prom or graduation or anything.
Yeah,
And all people were
yeah,
very, and then also like any people that are at risk, it was very scary because like, oh, are they gonna, how are they gonna deal with this and all. So like it was just a lot then. So I decided to try to put it into words, kind of like the background. That was kind of like all the thoughts going on in my mind.
yeah. Like Corona, no school, home,
Yeah,
help. Oh,
not all of them were
yeah,
even just
yeah.
mine. It's kind of like what people like, even like older people, because there were some things I don't remember exactly like everything I put on there, but it was just like thoughts that everybody was having, feelings
Hmm.
surrounding the whole
Hmm.
coronavirus situation.
So how are you feeling now?
A little bit better. It's it's still interesting since I'm we're all stuck at home and all, and there's not. I mean, it ends today though, the quarantine here anyways. So that's at least one positive, so it's starting to look up. But it's still very, you know, scary because you never know what could happen.
Yeah, there's a phased reopening happening in Louisiana today. So there's still some, some guidelines out there about wearing masks and social distancing. But yeah, restaurants are opening. Whatever your feelings on that may be. How have you and your siblings been dealing with learning from home, doing distance learning online? What's that been like?
It's been very eventful. For me, it was a little bit easier because I had taken all my like core classes, if you would call them that, like so math, English, all that, last semester. And this semester, I had 2 art classes, sociology and theater. So it was very I couldn't do a lot of stuff for my classes, so I didn't have as much work.
It would almost be easier to take a math and an English class online than trying to do an art class and theater. I mean, goodness.
We couldn't really do theater. Yeah, like we had our big play and that, you know, was canceled. We basically couldn't do anything. For art, I just like because I was taking AP art and we just tried to submit whatever we could because we couldn't really do it at home. And then my other art class was 3D, so we couldn't really do like ceramics and stuff like at home. So she just kind of made us sketch stuff. Like this was for her class because she just like gave us sketches to do. But my brothers were doing like, they're doing real stuff. So it's harder for them to do like math and science and all that at home and teach themselves, you know.
Are you guys having to compete for the internet? Like, is there a lot of streaming happening, or has it been a little smoother?
The Wi-Fi is not good at my house, but we use cellular. Like I typically just use cellular because we have unlimited data for all that, so it'll slow down eventually. But with that, we can usually manage it because like half of us will be on the Wi-Fi and half of us will be on cellular, so it usually doesn't crash.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, that's clever. So I'd like to show a couple images of stuff that you're working on now because I know you've continued to make things. Let me pull up 1 or 2 images here. Hold on 1 second. This share screen situation is always just like a little slower in practice than I would like it to be. So let's see which one this is. Hold on. This looks like an in-progress portrait of Will Smith.
Yes, that is. I tend to I mainly do portraits. I'm hoping to branch out and try to do more, you know, imaginative things, but as of right now I mainly do portraits. So yeah, this is one that I started of Will Smith, although even since then I've done more. But
yeah, you sent this to me, you know, before the weekend, so I'm sure it's much further along at this point.
Yeah, I probably have like I have all the way up until most of the rest of his face is done by now. But
yeah, this is fantastic. What media are you using to create this portrait here?
For this one, I'm just using color pencil, but I do put marker base down first. Honestly, I don't know if it helps me that much, but I saw some other artists doing that, and I feel like other than working on a plain white background, it helps so you can see the colors better.
Sure. Have you tried drawing on toned paper?
I want some toned paper, but I haven't gotten it yet because I went to Michael's, they were out of it, and my parents did not want to order it, so
understood.
I haven't.
Here's pro tip. Do you have watercolor paper or cardstock at home? You do. Okay. Do you have acrylic paint or gouache or watercolor at home? You do. Great. Awesome. So you can create a beautiful middle toned paper by using a very, very translucent layer of either a burnt or a raw umber. And just putting 1 or 2 washes over it, over any white paper at all. That way you don't have to spend extra money learning how to draw on toned paper, and it'll give you the desired effect that you're looking for with that underlayer of markers. Because with white paper, not a lot of people know this, and I'm sure you do because, you know, you're working with it, but with white paper, it's almost like your drawing is backlit, right? So you have to go from the highest highlight down to the darkest shadow. The reason why a lot of visual artists like working on toned paper is because they start in the middle and they can work up to the highlights and also down to the shadows. It just makes it easier to handle your value gradient. Yeah. But yeah, you can try that until you can get your hands on some free toned paper.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, well, I actually hadn't either until college, and I wish someone had told me sooner. So there you go, paying it forward.
That way I can hopefully save money.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me pull up one more piece that you have going on in progress to talk about that. Hold on just a second. And this piece that I'm pulling up is it's another portrait, but it's several people. Can you tell me about who these people are?
These are actually my friends. The third one who isn't painted is going to be, but they're my best friends. And this was also supposed to be another project for my art class, though I have not finished it yet because it's an oil paint, and oil paint tends to take me a lot longer to do than color
It's harder.
paint. Yeah. So, yeah, it takes me a lot longer. But yeah, no, she asked us to paint our favorite memory, and I couldn't pick out one. But my friends are probably in all of my my favorite is, would you say it like that, favorite is memories. So I
Sure.
decided to paint them. And so that's what this is.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I'm glad things have gotten at least into some kind of routine, and maybe some of that initial anxiety has sort of worn off a little bit. Please continue to send stuff into the Flat Curve Gallery. We love seeing it. Do you have anything else you want to add before I let you go?
I think that's it. Although I've really enjoyed being on here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. All right. Thank you for coming in. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Alrighty. Our next guest is going to be Raudaol of Palacios. He has been the cellist for Ship of Fools for a number of years now. He's also performed at the Baton Rouge Gallery during our first Wednesday opening receptions, and he is an artist teacher at the Palacios House of Arts, who has done a Sundays at 4 performance there in the past couple of months. It was just delightful. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to see you.
So glad to see you as well.
So tell us a little bit. You have been interacting with the gallery long before I started working there. Tell me a little bit about your history with the Baton Rouge Gallery.
Well, I believe the first time I ever performed in the gallery, it was probably a wedding, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was getting married there. Eventually, I think the first thing I did officially was the movies and music on the lawn.
Oh, really? When did you do that?
Well, we did back with Ship of Fools. We did one. It was early on for us as a band, at least. We did this movie called La Antena, which is this Argentinian silent.
I've seen that movie.
It's a great movie, and it already has great music. It was interesting in the sense that most silent films that are done there are old. In the case of this one is actually a relatively new film, and there was a little bit of spoken dialogue in it. And since we have a singer, she could do a little bit of that. Funny thing is that it was in Spanish, and only I could understand it, so I had to explain it to them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was a great experience. We did it again later with Faust, and that was super cool because Faust is such a great classic, and
one of the classics. The thing people don't really get about silent films is it's most of them are made around 1920s or so, and one of the great challenges is balancing the history and the art with some questionable things that don't exactly sit well in the zeitgeist of today as far as gender and race relations. So it's always a balance, but that's so cool that you were able to come and perform for 2 of them. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good, especially Faust, because Faust, the story is so cool, and a lot happens. There's a lot of very dramatic moments. So for us to put music to that was excellent. It was a beautiful process.
That's fantastic. And just so the audience knows, we welcome you guys to leave comments or ask questions. While we are doing this Facebook Live, I can see the comments and I can put them up for our guests to answer. That's going to be the case with all artists in residence as they're live. And I also encourage our guests to go back to our Facebook page and answer some of the questions that maybe we didn't get to during the broadcast. Moving forward, can you tell me a little bit about your music teaching?
Well, so I have this company that I started with my family called Palacios House of Arts, and it's the purpose of it is to help the community to create this like sense of, because okay, let me backtrack. When I grew up, I was very lucky. I grew up in Venezuela, and Venezuela has this thing called El Sistema, the system of orchestras, where like you go there and they give you an instrument and they introduce you to the world of music. But I was also very lucky of being part of a school called Mozart Town, which the purpose was to form kids the best they could so they could have a career, an actual career in music. So with the combination of these two, that's how I was able to eventually, go to Switzerland, get into school here in LSU, and like do all the things that I've done.
Wow.
So the idea of El Sistema is really good, and there's a lot of El Sistema programs here in the States, and it's really good for giving you the instrument. Like you're exposed to it, you have the ability to play, you learn how to like sort of like get around the instrument. But if you really wanna get good at it, if you really wanna progress, you have to have your private teacher and your education in the instrument, whatever it may be, that gets you to that point. So,
sure. Is that kind of
like the idea is to have the complement? Is to like let kids see what it's like to like grind and do like the work that you really have to like to get good at it.
Good. That's fantastic. So that all of that background has led you into your role then in teaching the performing music arts, right?
Right.
And it is my understanding that you have a little bit that you can perform for us today. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have my child.
Excellent. I was like, I sure hope so. Tell us, what instrument are you holding right now?
This instrument, this is the cello I use with my band. It's a little special because it has like this thing where you can plug in a microphone as if it was a guitar. So you can plug it into an amp, and I'm running it through a pedal board where I have, some pedals, and I'm gonna be using one specially, this looper, so I can play like things on top of each other.
So it'll sound almost like you're playing with an accompaniment.
It sounds like I'm playing with myself. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. Well, when you're ready, I'm ready for you to go for it.
Sure. The song I'm gonna play is one that we do with the band. One of the instrumental songs that we do is called Over Easy. It's part of a larger thing that we call the Breakfast Suite, and it's one of the X, Over Easy.
Great. Do it.
Here we go. you.
I know it's not the same because we're on the internet, but holy moly, that was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell me a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, this piece, this one is really special to me because normally when I write music, um, I either sing a melody or like play something on the cello, and then I figure out how to make it work. In this case, this song I wrote on the piano, and it was the first song
Really?
that I wrote on a piano. Um, and the melody is really pretty. The right, but my approach to it was more from like the chords. I figured out the chords first, and then the melody just kind of like came naturally to like what I had. So this song is very special for me in that sense. Like it's completely different for me as in a composition approach. Also, when we did it with the band, when I brought it to them and we started arranging it with the band, it was one of the first songs where like we didn't use drums. So with the band, the guitar player is playing the this part. I'm playing the melody, and instead of having drums, he's using a synthesizer, a synth.
Synthesizer, yeah.
He's playing chords, and it's really pretty, the whole thing. And it's kind of a nice break because it's in the middle of all these other songs that are like really heavy and like really, kind of aggressive, and it's kind of a nice break in between all of that.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We really appreciate you. If folks wanted to find more of you online, how could they find you? Where would they look?
Well, if they want to find me personally, just follow me on Instagram, Raudaol, just my name, Raudol. And if they want to find the band, we are on Spotify and Apple Music, on YouTube, Ship of Fools, Instagram, Ship of Fools _ There you can see like our upcoming shows. Facebook, Ship of Fools. That's Ship of Fools everywhere. Ship of Fools.
I'm going to spell it out here in case people...
You can see us at the gallery eventually when we do it again. We love playing those shows. It's like the most fun.
Oh, we love to have you too. Especially because in the gallery, the sound is so open, you know, so it really makes, especially the cello, that deep, rich sound kind of just resonate through the whole space. It's just, it's really something to experience in person when we can. Yeah. All right, Raudaol. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you so much. We hope you have a good day and things get back to normal soon.
Hopefully. It's good.
All right.
Soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That was today's episode of Artists in Residence. We thank you so much for tuning in if you caught it live. If not, do not worry. If you're just catching the tail end of it now, it's going to live on, indefinitely here on our Facebook page, as well as on our YouTube page and our website, batonrougegallery.org. If you enjoy these programs, you can tune in every Tuesday and every Friday for our conversations with artists of all kinds. If you want to support what we do, you can donate or become a member here at the website below on the ticker. That's batonrougegallery.org. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you on Tuesday. Take care.